All right, I'm curious, as a production spouse, how much of the technical lingo that your husband uses to describe like whatever he's working on at work do you actually understand? And if it's not very much, like myself, how do you get excited for the things he is describing to you?
There's lots of like sequences of letters and numbers, or like things that sound like they should be on a spaceship or something.
Angles and
the Extron thing for the this, and I'm like, So I try to like for real listen and follow what he's saying, and then ask like, okay, but tell me what that does and how does that impact that? So like it's like consciously not checking out.
My job being in special education, we have our whole pool of acronyms as well. So he's had to learn from my job. So when we share work stories, there's the conversation takes a long time because there's lots of clarifying questions, lots of explaining on both of our ends. So that kind of makes it kind of a little bit of an even road.
The thing that gets me nowadays is when like a new iteration of some piece of gear that he's worked on before comes out and he's like super duper excited about it. And it's like pulling teeth with me to get me excited for him on his behalf again, because I'm like...
And like what kind of equipment does he get excited about? Like what are we even talking here?
So video cameras, lenses, software for editing or things like that. And like it's like in the Mark II or Mark III, and I'm like, so what's the difference from the one before?
Right.
I'm so glad you're excited about
that. Totally.
I you guys are so good. Like asking questions, and because I really try to hold in on and asking the clarifying question. But like sometimes there's a glaze. The glaze happens, and he's very kind to me to limit the tech talk to my basic understanding. But a lot of the stuff I really do think is cool.
Yeah.
Tell me how many pixels are in a cubic something. It's like, I know that was better.
Yeah. How do you handle, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but those last minute additions to the calendar? Like, I find that those are the things that I struggle with, where I'm like, well, we tried to plan the whole month, and now all of a sudden you're like, what are you telling me you have to go in for rehearsal right now? Like, I didn't know about that.
I mean, sometimes last minute text messages are a lifesaver just because it at least gives you a second to say, okay, I'm going to have to totally shift what I thought was going to happen tonight because it's not going to happen because this is happening instead.
I think the trickiest area for us, like even with calendaring or like just like in terms of us like mental, emotional, like let's not attack each other in this moment. Let's like be partners in what's happening. Talking ahead of time and trying to guess like, hey, when this happens or this happens, we've run into, a roadblock in the past of the schedule. So these are the types of things we need to flex over when I last minute rehearsal, or if it's Saturday night and the PA dies, guess what? I'm there till it's fixed. I don't get mad about that anymore. The first couple times I was like, it's real, it's freaking 10 o'clock at night. Like, come on, we were supposed to watch a movie tonight. But now I just kind of know, like, if that happens, it's emergency mode. He needs my support. Like, the best thing I can do is send him a text, or before we had kids, like, literally hop in the car and bring Dove bars to the team.
I think the trick for us is to always have margin built in to the monthly plan. Like, for us, family dinner is like a huge priority to me. And I'm not gonna lie to you to say that we have family dinner together 5 nights a week. But I have 3 teenagers, and we work really hard to try to eat together as much as possible. And so if you're building in the relational time, then you don't get super angry when the system goes down and you have to stay until 1 to fix it.
Well, I think that's a hard lesson we're learning right now about margin. Like and kind of to what you said too, like it works beautifully as long as not one single thing goes wrong. Because if you are filling it all the way to the edge and one thing goes wrong, I mean, the whole thing goes off the rails. So I think we are in that season, and we have 2 little ones, so it's like the sickness and then the perpetual, just all of it. I mean, it's trying to practice building in the margin, and that is something we are still really clumsy at. But that's a really helpful reminder. And I think too, like when we first got married, I had this expectation, like, we should have this figured out. Like, we should know how to do this right now. And I didn't at all consider that we would need, like, years of practice.
And I think, too, sometimes I just need to give myself permission to be disappointed that he has to stay late. It sucks.
Yeah. I'm not always great at, like, sort of demanding what I need, but I find that when I'm, like, brave enough and just say, like, I'm disappointed and this is what I need, Blaine is like really happy to try to help figure out, and instead of me like trying to either get him to read my mind or be like, well, I'm just the martyr, I guess. Like when I can say, no, I'm actually really frustrated, or I need time, or hey, I'm working on this project. Where's this time supposed to come from? He will take a half day. Or I'm like, oh, you know, like it's a helpful reminder for me too to not, like I don't have to hold it all by myself. Right. And sometimes I need to practice speaking up and verbalizing the things that I need. So I would love to know, as a production family, what is your favorite time of the year, and what is your least favorite time of the year?
I would say Easter is my least favorite time of year. I love celebrating Easter. It's the cornerstone of why we do, what we believe in. But because you have to have Good Friday beforehand, and then there's Sunday 2 days later.
Right.
And depending on where you work, maybe you just have one Good Friday service and one Sunday morning service, and maybe life is different. But where we go as a family, and where my relationship with my husband blossomed, it's packing in like 9 or 10 services in a 3-day period. And so the ability to actually sit back and reflect and worship and celebrate, that's the one where we always struggle on what do we do differently.
Yeah.
So
it's all on top of itself. Yeah.
I think that we've come up with like a new rhythm for Christmas and Easter where we start super early, and around Thanksgiving we are finalizing gifts. We're finalizing plans, menus, and things like that, because it's easy to feel abandoned during holidays, and so I have to like nip those things in the bud. And like you were saying, involving myself or the kids at church, where you know the whole you can't beat them, join them. So if we volunteer with the children, or if we serve in the green room for Christmas or Easter, we find that it's a lot easier for us as a family, because it's not that we're not seeing Daddy. Let's go and let's take fudge and hand it around to all the different people who are working long hours and they're not seeing their kids. And the teams would be so grateful that we would come and do that, and you know, just to kind of touch base when they're working, you know, maybe rehearsals or a lot of extra hours. So that's helped us. Now we have family farther away, so they're not planning on us for Christmas and Easter, and we just have my husband's family in Michigan close by. So we pack up Christmas evening and we drive, and we're asleep at 1 or 2 a.m. and get up the next morning, and my husband sleeps the next afternoon. And after like 4 or 5 years, I like gave up the idea that he would be awake the whole day. Like it's just, you know, you learn that it's not worth that battle, and that you're going to have, you know, maybe the week after to play together. You just have to get creative.
For our marriage, our favorite time is either the last week in January or the first week in February. We go away, just the two of us. We have always done that. Before babies, we literally would even leave the country, so no one could even, like, no cell phones, sorry, we're in Mexico, it doesn't work. So we call it our Christmas vacation, is in like February.
Love it. In case you're wondering why we all are twitching right now, it's because as production wives, we're sitting here doing this lovely interview, and we can hear a giant rainstorm pelting the windows outside, so we apologize. Good luck with the audio. So I think because of the schedules and because of the it's easy to feel abandoned at times when, you know, your husband is like doing extra late hours, or it's at a time when other families are together and you're like, oh, it's just me and my kids, or it's just me. It's easy to get resentful. So I'm just curious, what ways have you guys learned to fight against resentment within yourself?
We had a really hard time for a lot of years because I put so much pressure on my husband to make Christmas and make, you know, holiday special, my birthday special, you know, all these different things. And it's too much for a person. It was a lot for him. And God bless him, because he's such a servant-hearted person. He wanted to be the white knight who could, you know, ride up and make everything better. And he can't. And super good that he couldn't, because if he could, I wouldn't turn to God for any of my emotions. I'm a journaler. I'm a huge believer in like writing down all your
all the feelings.
Blank feelings that you can't necessarily share with your children, because you don't want them to blankety blank. And my husband doesn't need to hear that when he's in a horrible, you know, late night time. But to like take on some of the responsibility of, okay, I see this on the calendar. It's coming up. What am I going to do so I'm not mad that he's gone 3 nights this week? Right.
What are some of the things that are really complicated, but also some of the things that are really beautiful at getting to see up close church and church work? And you guys have only been, because your husband did production or tech outside of the church for a while, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so now you're in the church. So
we've had kind of both views.
Yeah, so what's your perspective on that?
I think at times having the backstage view of production can make it hard sometimes to connect, as an attender with a message, because we've seen the behind the scenes. If it was particularly stressful prep for a Sunday, we're more aware of that ugly side of those short interactions that may happen, those tense interactions that may happen. And it can make it harder to connect with that message. And so you have to kind of filter that out a little bit and say, we have to push that aside so that I can learn from this and, use this information to be better. But it takes practice sometimes to be able to put up that filter and not say, well, I know that person over there is the reason that my husband came home in a horrible mood, and then we were all in a horrible mood because,
because he missed dinner and blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. And then all the stress was on me to take care of the kids all by myself, and, being able to push that aside and say, we can all move past this and still connect with the message that's happening on Sunday morning and connect with the people that are there.
It always stresses me out.
I think it's knowing in those moments too when Matt comes home wounded or frustrated, to know what is it he most needs from me now? For me to be frustrated with him, for me to sit and listen and go, man, that really sucks. That must have really hurt when that was said to you, or that would definitely make me think that person is a jerk too. And to be able to just be his wife in that moment and be his best friend and his listener, and then at the appropriate time remind him, what is it that you love about your job? Remember, we're here, we're in this because we feel called to this. And to have we need regularly to have those conversations. We feel called to this, remember, because this might have been their day to be a jerk. Tomorrow might be your day to be a jerk. We don't know. And I think if I feel called and I trust that God assembles the staff at the church, even if that other staff member was a jerk to my husband, I still think they're called and that God has them in the place he wants them in, and it has to come back to that core thing. Otherwise, you couldn't be crazy making.
As you think about your own spouse, what is something that they have worked on, whether it's a project or a specific service or a relationship that they've had to manage at work that's been hard, that you feel really proud of?
In Nate's previous role, he did a lot of set design and scenic, and the ideas that he would come up with and the time he would spend researching to make sure that the scenic was the best that it could be for the message series that was happening. It always impressed me so much because he put so much thought and detail and care into creating a space that is maybe not typically used for a church service to become a space of worship. It helped me understand so much how important scenic is and set design and how much it can help you connect with what's happening in a space.
One of the things recently that's happened to Matt, it was the number 2 Easter service, and the service started and the speakers just started shutting off, and he's the audio systems engineer, so when speakers don't work, his butt is on the line, and I'm literally
were you there?
Well, I was watching the live stream, and so I'm literally watching, and my heart, my stomach's in my throat, and I'm we've talked about this is his worst nightmare ever.
Oh gosh.
That the PA dies at the beginning of a major holiday service, and I'm just and there's nothing I can do. Absolutely nothing. So I sent him a text and I was I see the crazy that's happening, and please know I'm praying for you and I love you and you'll be wonderful. And so he came home that night and he just regurgitated all and talked about how he strategized and how he did this and what he learned about this and how he coordinated other people, and even the people he's I need to go back and apologize because I probably was really short in that moment, but just so proud of it's easy to sit, I think, in the congregation and just go, I don't know what's happening right now. Yeah. And there's a man sprinting all over creation trying to figure out why mysteriously speakers are just turning off.
Good work, Matt. Busy, what about you?
I think what I'm most proud of with Todd is that he's a relational leader. And more than the gear and the systems, and he loves talking geek just as much as any tech person does. Am I allowed to say that? Talk geek?
I think so.
I don't mean it offensively.
I think we all know what you mean.
I have to make fun of it because I don't understand it.
Right, exactly.
That's what I'm trying to say.
It's a coping mechanism.
It is. It's a
Totally.
coping
It's
mechanism.
fine.
Exactly. Is that he really cares about the people that he's working with, and so he really thinks that there's value in building into people so that they can bring their best person forward. So he believes that if he builds into Kevin and he trusts Kevin, that he knows Kevin's going to do a lot better job.
What is that one thing, and not like a paragraph, but like one thing that you would say, I don't tell you this enough?
I think I would tell Nate that I am so impressed with what he does, because it is so deeply outside of my realm of understanding of just things, that I'm so impressed with how he is able to do his job and manage the stress that can come with his job.
Yeah.
I would say that I just really respect his courage to follow what he really thought God wanted him to do, to embark on working for a church that was a startup church. I mean, talk about like financially not necessarily the most, it's not, let's just say it's not an engineer salary,
right.
Going and starting a job as a production person. So I admire his courage.
I'm gonna try not to cry.
Okay.
But like realizing that like we talk a lot about this around Easter and Christmas and big events, like the fact people can hear this message and that you made it so that the speakers work and the microphones work, they hear this message. But just like even in this moment sitting and realizing like there are special needs kids that have a room where the audio is just right, so they can be in this community. I'm so proud of him. It's not just on Christmas and Easter, and I think we forget because of the daily grind. Every weekend, someone who is broken and hopeless and on the edge shows up, and because of the work Matt does, they get to hear about Christ. And I want him to remember that more often.
What they do matters. It's got life and death in it every single day. I think all of our husbands here, but everybody sitting in this seat, the excellence with which you do your work, and the fact that it's a weekend service on a random July evening. Well, you're still showing up and putting in 110%, and God knows that, and we see it, and we are so proud of you.
Totally.